A splendid and not so hot and humid Tuesday afternoon, everyone. Yours truly, Denise Osorio here for PTV News Now. And we kick off our afternoon stories with the country's top public hospital located near the heart of the nation's capital will soon get a shot in the arm with increased staffing or manpower to the tune of 1,200 more positions to be filled out very soon. The impending infusion of medical personnel and staff support is the national government paying heed to the hospital's leadership's treaty for additional bodies to help carry out its mission of providing health services or medical treatment at cost or at no cost or free of charge to the poor and indigents of the city of Manila and elsewhere. The decision to grant and greenlight the PGH's request for staff expansion was a no-brainer given an increasing volume of new patients from all over the megacity and nearby province who seek top-notch yet affordable healthcare and medical treatment. Capacity strengthening will be pursued gradually in 4 rounds or tranches beginning in the first and last quarters of this year, in 2026 and in 2027. U.S. President Donald Trump's Liberation Day announcement at the White House Rose Garden has rocked financial markets worldwide and sent heads of states, governments, business leaders, and ordinary folks/workers scrambling to address the adverse effects of Trump's latest tariff rates. One of the latest to weigh in, Singapore Prime Minister and Head of Government Lawrence Wong, who said earlier today Trump's aggressive tariff scheme and imposition on Singapore is not what one does to a friend, adding his government will likely downgrade this year's economic forecast. Prime Minister Wong likewise hinted at the likelihood of a global trade war erupting and urged his constituents, the utterly trade-dependent people of Singapore, to brace themselves and prepare for the bumpy and rocky road ahead. And though Singapore was hit by a minimum and minuscule 10% tariff, the higher rates of its trading partners will surely have adverse repercussions with a slump on global commerce and a disrupted, even dismantled free trading system that has worked for so long for all nations, to include the United States. Last week and a half ago, U.S. President Donald Trump vented his exasperation on Kremlin and Putin dragging their feet in coming to agreement on a peace pact with Ukraine. Days after, Secretary of State Marco Rubio let out his frustration and said Russia cannot go on prolonging talks and will have to make a decision very soon. One of the key or thorny issues hampering agreement over a ceasefire is the who keeps whose lands between the two. VOA's Jeffrey Custer was in Moscow recently and he filed this report.
Moscow this week suffered the biggest Ukrainian drone attack since the start of the war, leaving at least 3 dead and 17 injured. Many Muscovites are trying to ignore the war, but many also hope that negotiations between the Kremlin and the new U.S. administration will soon bring a peace that Russians consider a victory. Officials say the goal is international recognition of the new borders that the Russian army has obtained by force.
It is clear that there will be a bilateral settlement between us and Kyiv. It should be a peace treaty that will legalize the new borders of Russia and the post-Soviet borders of Ukraine.
Many in Moscow are already celebrating the new geopolitical scenario before the conflict is ended.
This is a real victory. You can open champagne. Also, it cannot be lost. Russia must continue the offensive because no one canceled the ambitions of the United States. Yes, they are afraid of us, but it does not mean that they abandoned their idea of a world empire.
After more than 3 years of war, independent media outlet Mediazona counts more than 95,000 Russian casualties. But these losses are not stopping the Kremlin from carrying on with the war. In a meeting with wives and mothers of deceased soldiers, Russian President Vladimir Putin said there would be no concessions.
We are not going to do that. We must choose for ourselves a version of the world that would suit us and that would ensure peace for our country for a long historical perspective.
Critics of Putin can only speak from exile. As they see it, the Kremlin could make concessions, but giving up its territorial ambitions is out of the question.
Compromises can be presented on some other issues related to how the Ukrainian security architecture will be formed after the war. Moscow wants to be a participant in the formation of this new Ukrainian security architecture and, in fact, to describe what can be done and what cannot be done.
Russian officials are looking forward to a meeting with U.S. officials following the talks between U.S. and Ukrainian negotiating teams in Saudi Arabia. So far, there is no such gathering in sight. Jeff Custer, VOA News.
And that's a wrap for this afternoon's Breaking Stories. Join us anew later on for the second set of Breaking Stories at the hour in our evening edition. And always get yourself up to speed with the rapid pace of events here at home and abroad by keeping it here for news you can count on, news you can trust. Denise Osorio here till later tonight, and thank you for watching PTV News Now.